Disclaimer. These videos show some tips to help you on a thru hike of the AT. The ideas presented are not the only way, merely one hiker's experience. Remember, hike your own hike.
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to
Tips from the Trail.
And today on Tips from the Trail, Sharon and I and little baby Asher Thomas, we are out on a hike on our newly adopted section of the North Country Trail, and we thought we would do a tips from the trail while we were out here. And in this video we are going to talk about through hiking the AT on a budget. How can you hike the AT the cheapest way possible? We get a lot of questions about how much money it takes and ways to save money, and we did the AT for a very low cost. We pinched our pennies and we learned a lot. So in this video, we're gonna tell you how we did it and ways we think that you can save money in through hiking a trail. It doesn't even have to be the AT. So let's get right into it. When preparing for a through hike, you've got two main expenses. One being the gear that you're going to take on your through hike, and your other expense being the money that you need while you're actually through hiking. So first we're gonna talk about the gear and ways you can cut down on that, and then we'll get into the money you need to take with you while you're actually hiking. All right, so gear. When thinking about the gear that you're going to take on the AT or on, like I said, in any through hike, it's important to know that you are putting that gear through a lifetime's worth of abuse because of the amount of hiking that you're going to do, and potentially you are going to ruin this gear. So there is no reason to buy top of the line gear. No need for it. I don't want to say no reason. You can definitely buy good quality gear, and we have some gear that we bought that did last the hike and that we're still using now because it was good quality gear. But if you're trying to pinch your pennies and you're trying to do this as cheaply as possible, realize that you can buy less expensive gear and it will work just fine. I think the best way to save money on the gear that you need for your through hike is to plan your through hike in advance and give yourself enough time to get your gear. We had 15 months of preparation time for our through hike, which happened to be 2 Christmases. So we got a decent amount of gear as gifts. So that can be a pro or a con, because some people don't buy you the right gear. But so having time for, maybe getting the gear as gifts, and then just having that extra time to bargain shop and to really find deals. If you give yourself enough time to wait and you're constantly searching some of these sites, you're gonna be able to find good deals on the gear that you want. I think a common mistake that people make, and is a big source of expenditure, or a big expenditure, is that people think that the gear that they have is not good enough because they feel that the AT is going to ruin their gear, and if I have a pair of hiking socks that are used, they'll never make it. Well, the AT is a good place to retire that stuff. Don't worry about buying it then. Wear out your old stuff on the trail. There's a ton of options of getting gear on the trail. You'll always be able to replace things on the trail. So don't replace them and use that and spend that money before you leave. Wait for them to wear out. A great example of this is Sharon had trekking poles that I told her, we need to get you new trekking poles. Yours will never make it on the through hike. And we got pictures of her holding them up at the sign at Katahdin. Her trekking poles made it the whole way. So if you're not sure about a piece of gear, try it. Don't replace it, because there's a good chance that it'll work better than you think. And if it doesn't, you can always replace it. Don't be afraid of generic brands. A lot of times your top tier, your top name brand is significantly more expensive, when the generic brands will do the work, and they just may not last as long, but pricing is significantly cheaper. Now, I don't suggest going out and buying the cheapest thing you could possibly find. You know, go through the reviews. If you're buying off of Amazon or something, make sure you ask about a product and find out. But a lot of times you can buy something that's a lot cheaper because it's just a knockoff or a generic brand, and it will do the job. A good example is clothing wise. You could buy yourself a pair of like a mid-layer for the winter or something, and it could be, you know, $100 for an underlayer for the shirt, and you could go to Walmart and get a starter, you know, wicking layer for $12. So, and that's an example. That's what we used, was just like starter wicking layers, and they work just fine. Yeah, they probably won't last as long, and a lot of our stuff got little holes and stuff in it. So yeah, the quality's not as good, but when it comes to the AT, they will work. And if you're trying to do it on a budget, that's a way of saving money. This won't apply to everybody, but I think it does to a certain group of people. Don't worry about your appearance on the trail and how other hikers are going to perceive you, because hikers are, from my experience through hiking, are the nicest people you'll ever meet, and are not going to judge you by what you wear. And not only that, by the time you get a couple 100 miles to 1,000 miles into the trip, you're not going to care what you're wearing. Whatever is comfortable. If it is comfortable, you're going to wear it. If you rip the legs off your pants because you're too hot, you're going to have holes and things. You're going to stink. When it comes down to it, don't worry about what gear you're using. As long as it works for you, then that's what you need to be using. Before we get to expenditures on the trail, we'll talk about a couple other things besides gear that you can save money on before you get on the trail. One being, and a lot of people do this, and it's bulk buying food and packaging up food and having packages ready and shipping them out. Now, in our experience, yes, you can save money this way, but I don't know if it's a very efficient way to save money. It's a lot of time and trying to get them sent to yourself in the right spots, and sending yourself care packages as for every meal is very difficult. And we've noticed that just being smart and bargain shopping on the trail and eating inexpensive food is just as efficient in saving money when it comes to food. Another trail expense that people don't realize, and that is getting to the trailhead at Springer and then getting home from Baxter. Now there's a lot of different ways to do it, trains, and you know, if you're getting a flight, I would say the cheapest ways are just gas and trying to get a family member to get you a ride there. That's how we did it. Also, be in contact with other hikers, and then maybe being able to carpool. There's gonna be hikers when you finish at the end that you may be able to carpool with, and there's also lots of hikers that start at the beginning. There are a few places that you can get rides, few people that you can call that shuttle to like the Springer and stuff, but they tend to be pretty expensive. So that's another thing about preparing. Prepare ahead of time and try to link up with another hiker to get yourself to the trail. And then you'll have enough time while you're on the trail to set up that way of getting home from Baxter. So, I mean, you'll have hours and hours and hours to plan that out while you're hiking. Now we're on the trail. And while you're hiking on the AT, the main expense that you have is resupplies. And like I said before, you can do your food and send it to you, but for the most part, I would say if you are going to hike the trail and you're not doing that, that's your main expense, is getting into a town, buying the food, and then getting out of a town. And starting off with just trying to get into town, there's gonna be almost every trail town, and Sharon just said that, The reason why it becomes expensive is because you're dealing with trail towns. These towns have developed around, or the AT, and they know that they have the hiker at a little bit of a disadvantage because we need to get into town. We need to get food, and they tend to be a little bit more expensive. But if you know where to look, you can save a little bit of money. One thing, there's a lot of people that offer shuttles, and they'll be in your guidebook. I mentioned this in every Tips from the Trail, get a good guidebook. But trying to talk to other hikers and find out those little hidden things, especially locals. And don't be afraid to hitchhike. That's gonna be your cheapest way to get into town. A lot of times it'll be free, and for the most part, if you do have to pay, it won't be very expensive. If you gotta take a shuttle, try to link up with other hikers. The more you can get people together to split a cost up, the better. If it's a $20 shuttle and you can get 4 or 5 hikers involved in the shuttle, then you're just gonna save money. Now you're in the town, and your first number one priority when you get into a town, well, it's gonna be to stuff your face. When you're through hiking, you are going to be so hungry that when you're going into town, you feel the need to reward yourself with going out to a buffet or just going to a restaurant and just ordering food and eating. The more you can tame that urge, the more money you will save. That is probably one of your biggest non-needed costs on the AT, is that feeling that you need to eat a lot. You do, don't get me wrong, you do need to fill your stomach when you get into town, but there's other ways to do it. Sharon and I came up with what we called the budget buffet. And there's a lot of different ways you can put this combination together. I'll give you one example of a budget buffet. Instead of going and spending $8 to $12, $15 on a buffet, Sharon and I would go to a grocery store, Save a Lot or any of those inexpensive stores, and we would get a package of hot dog buns for $1, a package of hot dogs for $1, and now you have 8 hot dogs for $2. So for $4, you get 16 hot dogs. There's an example of a budget buffet. You get to eat a lot, and it doesn't cost you that much. Throw in a little bit of chili, and a hot dog chili, and then some queso cheese, and you got chili cheese dogs for not much more. Little Caesars Hot and Ready's. There's a real quick and easy $5, you get a whole pizza. You know, look for these options. You think of the buffets as the place to go, and there's easier ways to get just as much food for a better price. But when it breaks right down to it, you're looking for calories when you come into town, and you can get just, or more calories actually, from getting a big tub of ice cream. You know, go to the store, get a big tub of ice cream, and you're gonna replenish more calories that way than going to an all you can eat buffet, and it'll be cheaper. Now you're in a town, you filled your belly, which is always good to do before you do your resupply. Not good to go into a store hungry. Now pick out your stores like Dollar General, your Save-A-Lots, these little chains, and you can find when you're down south, you'll find different ones, and as you go north, they'll change. We were also told that if you get the little club cards from some of these stores as you go up, you can save some money that way as well. But you just go calories for $1. Look at the price tag and look at how many calories it is. That's really what you're after when you're through hiking. If you want to save money, you don't want to look at, you want to look at what packs well and stuff, but you also want to look at calories per $1, and then consider calories per pound as well. But that'll help you save some money when it comes down to it, when you're shopping at a less expensive place and then considering how many calories you're actually getting per your $1. All right, now where do you stay? You've got yourself into a trail town. The best and most inexpensive stay you can have is getting out of town and camping. Camp just before town, do your resupply in the morning and then leave, or do your resupply and just hike out of town and stay at a campsite. You know, research before you come up to your trail town, research where you can camp before and after. Camping on the AT for the most part is free. So that's gonna be your least expensive way of staying around that resupply. Now, working your way up, I would say you can find some really dirty, inexpensive hostels. Hostels are gonna vary on the entire AT. Some are gonna be inexpensive, some will be more expensive, and this is where, you know, get yourself that good guidebook, like I said, and also talk to people. You'll find out more from the locals and more from hikers up and down the trail of where's the good hostel, where to stay, and that'll help determine whether you do want to stay at a hostel. Sometimes they're not worth it because of how expensive they are. A good way of saving a little bit and getting a better quality stay is to get together with 3, 4, 5 hikers and get a hotel room. You will never regret getting a hotel room on the AT. If you're gonna spend the money, and a lot of times you can get it cheaper, you get a $50, $60 hotel and split it with 5 people, you're just over 10 bucks, where a hostel can cost you 20 bucks a night. So it's less expensive, you get your own bathroom, get a nice shower, a lot of times they're much more comfortable, and if you get together with some people, spring for the hotel breakfast, because hotel breakfasts can be packed and taken with you. You've paid for it, you get it from the hotel, you eat breakfast, and then before you go, pack the bagels out, pack some of the fruit out for that first night. I know fruit's heavy because of the water, but eat it that first day. You know, that's a good way of saving money, because hotel breakfasts are all you can eat. So you pay a little bit extra in the hotel. If you've split the hotel with 3 or 4 or 5 people, it's not that much extra, and then you just pack out as much as you can. All right, to finish up, here's just a couple other quick tips on saving money. One being, try to go fast. If you are on a fast pace and you are trying to hike the AT and keep making miles, you're going to resist staying in towns. It's the things that slow you down. The more days you spend on the trail, the more money you spend. So the quicker you can get through, and believe me, you're gonna have plenty of hiking no matter how you look at it, but that quick pace and always thinking, let's make some more miles, can really keep you from getting hung up in a town. Some people we knew stay 2 or 3 days in a town, and you're gonna spend a lot of money in a couple days in a trail town. Another quick tip, learn to eat inexpensive food. Ramen noodles, Pop-Tarts, any of those things that normally I like to eat healthy, and on the trail, we basically had to throw that out the window, because in order to eat healthy on the trail, it's very expensive. But you can eat as many ramen noodles and Pop-Tarts, like I said, as you want, and you'll be able to get enough calories. If you're trying to get enough calories off of more healthy food, it's gonna be expensive. Another quick tip goes along with leaving the house when you go on your hike with gear that you're not sure is gonna make it, but you'll be surprised the gear left at shelters and hiker boxes. This gear's donated because somebody had a lot more money than you did when they started and brought extra gear they didn't need. They're leaving it at a hiker box as a donation. If you have trekking poles and you start the trail, I was able to build trekking poles out of hiker boxes along the way. So don't always feel like you have to fulfill that need for gear before you start, because you're going to have options for gear on the trail, whether you're buying it, finding it in hiker boxes, you'll be able to. So don't spend the money before you get on the trail. You'll have plenty of opportunity to spend the money while you're on the trail. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's what Sharon and I know about through hiking on a budget. I hope that this video has been helpful. And if you have any other suggestions for hiking on a budget or how to save money while through hiking, leave them in the comments below. But stay tuned for more tips from the trail, because if they worked for me, they may work for you. Bye-bye.
Until we meet.
Oh, he was gonna pull away though.
Happy trails to you. Smiling until then.
Here, we can walk
I am
around.
happy trails to you. Here's a famous expression. Felice and Daryl. Happy trails. Felice and Daryl.
I
All right, stay safe. Keep your twin blazes.